Vaugeois. I'm currently the Executive Director of the Humphrey Centre for Peace and Human Rights. I also sit on the Alberta Hate Crimes Committee. And I have to admit, I just got back from Uganda about a week ago, so I've been feeling really not too great about the world since I've been back. I have a really hard time when I do come back because I get really frustrated with our culture and our overconsumption and our everything. So when I was trying to think about what I wanted to speak about today, I was talking to my 12-year-old daughter today, and she drew me some speaking notes. And I said, what's the opposite of hate? And she said, peace and love. And she built me this beautiful little art mural that really focuses on the yin and the yang and the balance of the world and the need to find balance and how hate and discrimination breaks the world apart. But yet, the trees and the environment bring us this strength. And I'm always shocked at how beautiful she can articulate these concepts at such a young age, because I struggle with them every day. And lately I've been thinking a lot about hate in some ways, because in November the John Humphrey Centre is going to be planning a youth retreat for our youth from throughout Western Canada and St. Paul to talk about our history and who we are as Canadians. And this originally started out in St. Paul 5 years ago, having a conversation with the executive director there, feeling that that area of Alberta was an area that has such great, rich history, but struggles with such hate at a very deep level, to the point where you have, at one point I remember the First Nations community actually boycotted the community for a while. And so we're really trying to spend time with young people trying to talk about these issues. And when I think and what I understand hate to be is that in Canada we have it embedded so deep that I don't think we truly really realize it. And I really think it all comes down to our history and our politics of exclusion. And I think history is such an important part of all this stuff for us to talk about, because Canada, I mean, I know we've just recently been through the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and I think more than ever we need to hold on to that so tight. It's got to be everything that we do moving forward. Because in the past, our country has been built on policies and legislation of exclusion. And I think back to the time around 1910 to 1920 was such a pivotal time, because it was that time where we saw the banning of potlatch and spiritual ceremonies of our First Nations people. We saw the Canadian government make a specific parliamentary motion to end fishing licenses for Japanese people in the West, because it all came down to economy and a fear that the Japanese would take over our fishing industry. We had the holding of the Komagata murder ship in 1914 out in Vancouver Bay, where over 300 people from India, Sikhs from India, stayed on that boat trying to come to Canada, and Canada would not let them in. When they were forced to go back to India, the British Guard was there and 19 people were shot. So our country has been built on this history of hate and exclusion, and it's something that we need to reconcile, because it's not just our reconciliation with our First Nations, it's reconciliation as a whole nation that we have to come to terms with. And I think that's seen across North America. And I think about that time in history too, was when we were seeing the Red Summer in the United States, where there was the lynchings of a lot of young black men. That's still relevant today. All these things are still relevant today when we talk about and we think about that and how it impacts our justice systems and our prison systems and the connections that that has with poverty. There's so many issues that we need to talk about. So I come with a frustration, because in so many ways when I come back from Uganda, one of my first things I had to do was to sit at a government committee meeting, and I was really frustrated, because I think when we talk about hate impacts our communities in such ways, but it comes from an exclusion of oneself, but it comes from an exclusion of others through our systems. And it causes anger, it comes from poverty, it comes from abuse, and our systems just really are not set up in a way to address it and deal with it in a really good way. And this is where I have to come to speaking about my friend Dan Woodall. I haven't really spoke about this publicly because I think it's a bit hard. I remember I was on the Alberta Hate Crimes Committee with Dan for the last couple of years, and I was on my way to High River the night that all happened. We've been doing work in High River looking at the human rights gaps that have happened since the flood there. And I was doing a workshop with a bunch of people in High River, and one of my colleagues showed me the email from the hate crime committee that Dan was the one that had been shot. And I remember nearly dropping to the floor, because Dan was somebody who had come into the Alberta Hate Crimes Committee with a real passion and a real unique vision for hate crime, and he was really acting as a pioneer in so many ways. And so losing him at the Alberta Hate Crime Committee is a huge loss. But one of the things I really want to get across with Dan's loss is that ultimately, when we think about why Dan is gone, I think about the gentleman who shot him. And I think about the hardships he went through. I think about the struggles that he was having as an individual and how he became quite isolated in our society. And I struggle with the fact that our systems don't include people. They don't make it a safe place for people to come forward and feel like it's a place where they're going to be supported. And this is something that we need to look at. And there are winds of change right now. I think the election in May was a sign of the winds of change, and I think the call today of the election in November or October, is a call for change. And more over the last 3-4 years, our country has become more and more a country of exclusion, and it's time for us to stand up and make that change. So I leave you today asking you to think about Dan and to think about what our role is for people who are dealing with the things that that gentleman was dealing with, and not to forget why Dan had to leave this world. Thank you.
Thank you, Renee. Can we have Aaron Paquette come up, please?
Thanks, Chevy, and thank you all for being here. I'd like to acknowledge that we're on Treaty 6 territory, and as such, the ground you stand on is sacred. And that makes you a sacred people. You know, as I was listening to all the speakers, I heard a lot of stories of pain, a lot of stories of loss, and underlying it, stories of anger and rage from people who can't accept that someone else might be different from them. And as we hear these stories, I look out and I see all these children playing together. And it reminds me that hate is not something we're born with. It's something we're taught. And hate comes from fear. And anyone who is encouraging you to fear another person, to fear your neighbor, to fear another human being for being who they are, is trying to get something from you. And usually it's the benefit to them and not to you. You know, we've got all these people out here who weren't expecting to hear these words today, and now they're confronted with them. And one thing we know is that as Canadians, we generally have a very accepting attitude. And although our struggles are real, and they are hard, they're getting better. And the reason for that is a simple word, and the word is hope. And you know, I hear people say to me, oh, hope. Oh, you're a hopey, changey guy? Hope? What has that ever done? What has cynicism ever done? What has hopelessness ever done? Hope is the one thing that changes our world for the better. And when we tell our kids not to hope, when we tell our kids to grow up and stop believing, then we end the possibility for something good to happen in this world. As we've been standing here, this breeze has been coming in, and the thought that came to me is that's the wind of change. Are you ready for change? I don't know. Are you ready for change? In the back. Are you ready for change? Are you ready for something better? Are you ready for a tomorrow that you can wake up in and you can feel safe. You can feel secure. You can feel joyful and you can feel hope. Safety will never come to you from people who are telling you to be afraid. Safety will come to you from people who are telling you to be hopeful. My grandmother did not have the right to vote. My Kukum did not have the right to free passage in this land. But people stood up, just as you're standing up. And just as we're going to teach our children to stand up, because that's how things change. You are here today, there will be 100 more like you tomorrow, 1,000 more like you next year. What people don't seem to understand is that this is unstoppable, because you are unstoppable. You are unstoppable, yeah. We have a choice to make in our lives every day. And the choice is, are we going to succumb to our fear, or are we going to stand in our courage? Chevy is a hero to me. And everyone like Chevy is a hero to me. Because this world will try to make you curl up and hide. And you don't have to. And you won't. Because hate to hope needs heroes. And every day that you stand, just like you're standing today, you are a hero to me. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for letting me speak. And thank you so much for your everyday choices that make this a better world. Because that's what it is. Even for the people who try to tear you down, you're making a better world for them too. Now, I guess I'm supposed to say something about government. I didn't want to bore anyone, so here it is. And that is that the government you choose is you. The government you choose is you. And if the government that you have does not reflect your values, then you need to make bigger choices. You need to encourage everyone you know to make better choices. We've spoken about change for years, and we're on the cusp of a major shift in this country. But it's up to you. It's not up to some politician. It's not up to some candidate. It's up to you. And that's all it can ever be. You made something historic happen here in Alberta. We can make something historic happen in Canada. And sure, I'm talking about government change, but I'm also talking about finally having the strength, the courage, and the voice to go from hate to hope. Thank you so much.